The injustice of good people not getting what they deserve is a difficult reality to accept. Often those who are honest, hardworking, and true to their values are outnumbered by those willing to manipulate, lie, or sacrifice ethics to achieve their goals. Why is it that the world seems to favor precisely the worst people among us? History, politics, business. In all these scenarios, we find examples of individuals who, despite their lack of morals, have managed to achieve extraordinary power. From cruel emperors to ruthless CEOs, the pattern repeats itself. But this isn't just a coincidence, it's a feature of human nature, deeply rooted in our evolutionary psychology and the social structures in which we live. In a world where resources are scarce, competition is inevitable. Those who hesitate, who always seek justice in every situation, often find themselves left behind. Meanwhile, those willing to exploit, cheat, and dominate rise to the top. This harsh reality forces us to face an uncomfortable question. Is morality really a weakness in the game of power? The great irony is that while the worst people often succeed in the short term, history is littered with accounts of their downfalls. The question is not just why these people reach the top, but whether their success is really sustainable. And more importantly, what this means for those of us who refuse to abandon our principles. Nietzsche saw power as an inevitable force of life, something that is neither good nor evil, but simply a truth of existence. To understand why the worst people often prevail, we first need to understand the nature of power itself. And for that, let's explore one of Nietzsche's most controversial ideas, the morality of masters versus the morality of slaves. Imagine two warriors on a battlefield. One is strong, decisive, and fearless. He takes what he wants, shapes the world to his will, and doesn't ask for permission. The other is hesitant, waiting for external validation, seeking justice and hoping that the world will reward his virtue. Which of these two is more likely to survive? Who is more likely to dominate? Friedrich Nietzsche argued that morality is not a universal truth, but a creation of power struggles throughout history. He identified two major moral categories, the morality of masters and the morality of slaves. These are not merely theoretical ideas. These concepts aid in explaining why those who value kindness and justice tend to fall behind, while ruthless people frequently succeed. The morality of the powerful, the conquerors, the tyrants, is the morality of the masters. It is founded on virtues like power, ambition, bravery, and strength. What is excellent for masters is what makes them more capable of creating, controlling, and imposing their will on the world. They take ownership of their lives, establish their own value, don't look on others for approval, and view weakness as a strength to be conquered rather than a weakness to be shielded. Slave morality, on the other hand, is the morality of the downtrodden, the helpless, and those who are unable to directly enforce their will. It exalts sacrifice, obedience, and humility rather than strength. It teaches that power is intrinsically wicked and that suffering is honorable. According to Nietzsche, this is a moral code developed by those who are incapable of dominating, a psychological adaptation that enables them to live in a society dominated by the powerful. Here's the unsettling reality, though. Slave morality promotes, rather than inhibits, the growth of the heartless. It gives authority to people who have no regard for morality by denouncing ambition and disgracefully pursuing it. Those who adopt the morals of the masters seize power, while those with noble hearts pause. Furthermore, the outcomes are unavoidable in a society where hesitancy is equated with failure. What does this signify for us, then? Should we completely forsake morals and take the brutal route? Or can virtue and strength be reconciled? Consider a huge wilderness. Survival in this world depends on fortitude, flexibility, and the resolve to go to any lengths rather than on fairness or compassion. The storm doesn't express regret for the devastation, the lion doesn't seek permission to kill, and morality isn't rewarded by nature. Those who are able to resist and those who are skilled at dominating are rewarded. The strong win, in this game of life. And this makes us think about how we might live in this world and strike our own balance between morality and strength. Contrary to appearances, human society is exactly the same. The rudimentary struggle for survival continues to occur behind the laws and social contracts. One characteristic that many people who gain power have in common is ruthlessness. It's the capacity to take decisive action without doubt or guilt, not necessarily cruelty. This strategy, which has enabled individuals and empires to gain dominance in a world that does not wait for the timid, is not an accident. Rather, it is an evolutionary adaptation. The characteristics that predict success in competitive settings have long been examined by psychologists, and the same trends are consistently seen: a high degree of ambition, a low sensitivity to fear, and, perhaps most controversially, a diminished capacity for empathy toward people who stand in the way. This suggests that many strong people have traits that enable them to behave without the emotional restraints that prevent others from doing so, but it does not imply that all powerful people are psychopaths. From Julius Caesar to contemporary tycoons, consider the leaders, business people, and conquerors who have influenced history. The pattern is obvious: power is taken, not given, and hesitancy is a barrier. The strong take the initiative, take chances, and deal with the fallout afterward rather than waiting for approval to lead. Because of this, the merciless typically rise while the cautious stay in the background. The paradox is that ruthlessness is insufficient on its own. Those with might but no insight frequently fall from great heights. The same traits that make someone successful can also make them fail. The forces that formerly dominated a leader will eventually engulf him if he governs solely out of fear. Tyrants throughout history have thought they were unbeatable until they were proven wrong. Does this imply that morality and justice are doomed to fail if the brutal are frequently the ones who gain power? Not all the time. We must examine the idea that the world is fair, one of the biggest delusions in contemporary culture, in order to comprehend this. We have been reassured since we were little that justice will always triumph, that the world is fair, and that good deeds are rewarded. Moral theories, religious teachings, and fairy tales all support this idea. But a harsh contradiction shows up when we step into reality. Kindest hearts are frequently the most shattered, the most honest don't always lead, and the hardest workers aren't necessarily the wealthiest. This separation is a feature of the system, not a flaw in it. In many respects, the concept of justice is a social construct, a story that was developed to uphold order rather than to represent reality. Even while it's a reassuring illusion, it is nonetheless an illusion. Success and power are not granted solely on the basis of merit. Those that know the game better than others take them, fight for them, and frequently keep them. The inclination to think that life is naturally fair and that people receive what they deserve is known as the fair world fallacy, according to psychological research. This idea promotes passivity, which makes it harmful. We risk overlooking the realities of competition, strategy, and power if we think that virtue alone will bring us success. Those who do not share our delusion are already making progress while we wait for justice. However, does this imply that morality has no purpose? Should we compromise our morals in order to get power? Not precisely. Understanding the game without becoming enslaved to it is crucial. Those who think that kindness alone will suffice are frequently the ones who suffer the most. The rules are rewritten by those who learn to strike a balance between strength and kindness, honesty and strategic thinking. As a matter of fact, we cannot expect justice. It is something we must produce, and power is needed for that. According to Nietzsche, this conflict is an essential aspect of human life. In response, he refrained from acting ruthlessly, cruelly, or giving in to the delusion of justice. Rather, he indicated a higher power, a means of surpassing both harshness and frailty. We must examine one of his most groundbreaking concepts, the Übermensch, the one who shines beyond morals, illusions, and boundaries. In order to comprehend this, picture yourself perched on the brink of a huge chasm. The world that lies behind you is one that is rife with injustice, constraints, and the coercive force of convention. The unknown is ahead of you, a route that only the courageous dare to take. Some may jump, but the majority will pause, bound by uncertainty and fear. These are the Übermensch, those who transcend society, carve out their own route, and reinterpret authority according to their own standards. The Übermensch, according to Nietzsche, is not about blind dominance or force. It's about conquering oneself. The Übermensch is a person who chooses to control their own fate rather than live up to others' expectations, who rejects being a victim of circumstances and who questions an imposed morality. The will to power lies at the core of the Übermensch. The will to power is about embracing one's innermost desires to create, transform, and impose meaning on a meaningless world, in contrast to the passive morality of guilt and surrender. Controlling oneself is more important than controlling others. Fear imprisons the weak, but the Übermensch emerges free from the illusions of civilization. Here's the important thing, though. It is not cruelty that makes the Übermensch ruthless. The Übermensch does not require validation, in contrast to tyrants and manipulators who are motivated by insecurity to gain power. He is strong from within. Because his authority is self-sustaining and unaffected by outside praise or fleeting success, he is not dependent on deceit or oppression. The worst individuals can so gain power but never really surpass it. The Übermensch plays the infinite game, building something bigger than themselves, whereas the ruthless play a transient game by increasing by force and manipulation. They are not merely takers, they are makers. What then can we do to embody this? Without becoming like the vicious, how do we survive in a society that rewards them? The solution is to view power as a tool rather than a weapon. Learning to compete in a world that doesn't wait for the well-intentioned is the next step. Imagine this. The rules of this high-stakes game are set by players who want to win at all costs. You lose if you wait and think that justice will keep you safe. Many people in business, politics, and daily life must deal with this fact. The merciless are aware of this. They take what they desire. But does it imply that in order to live, you must adopt their traits? Not always. Most individuals make the error of thinking that there are only two choices, either be a victim or be ruthless. However, there is a third approach that combines integrity and strategic thinking to enable you to succeed without compromising your soul. Nietzsche advocated transcending weakness while retaining sincerity rather than pursuing blind dominance. Understanding power without becoming enslaved by it is crucial. Here's how. The idea that life should be fair is one of the biggest flaws in people. It shouldn't. It hasn't been. The most formidable rivals acknowledge this right away. They don't waste their time griping about injustice. They become familiar with the game's regulations and take advantage of them. And acknowledging that power is neutral and that people who comprehend it utilize it to their advantage does not imply a disregard for ethics. Many people fail because they believe that their success would come from goodwill alone. However, power is rarely granted. Rather, it is taken. Understanding the thoughts of individuals who would try to take advantage of it is more important than becoming nasty. Strategic empathy is the ability to read people well, understand their motivations, and predict their next move. It lets you avoid being dishonest while navigating deception. Fear controls the majority of people. Fear of being alone, of rejection, and of failure. On the other hand, the Übermensch cultivates inner strength. This entails accepting discomfort, taking chances, and following your own path in spite of resistance. Those who are most successful don't seek permission. They open doors where none previously existed. Controlled ruthlessness is not the same as ruthlessness without a purpose. The first is irrational destruction. The second is the capacity to make tough choices without second-guessing them. Power occasionally requires stepping away from harmful relationships, taking controversial stands, or facing hard realities. This is power, not cruelty. Knowing when and how to act is crucial. The merciless fall hard, but they often rise quickly. Why? Because exploitation, not creativity, is the foundation of their authority. Whether it is a company, an idea, a movement, or a personal metamorphosis, the true Übermensch creates. You become indispensable when you add value. Since your power is gained rather than taken, you don't need to manipulate. Can you thrive in a society that praises the brutal? Absolutely, but only if you begin to conquer power according to your own terms. Stop waiting for justice and stop playing by the old rules. If this video made you think about the game of power and how to navigate this world without losing your integrity, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. After all, as Nietzsche said, the Übermensch doesn't wait for justice, he creates his own path. And if this idea has added value for you, please consider leaving a thanks a lot of any amount. Your support allows us to continue bringing you reflections that help you see beyond illusions and gain power on your own terms.